Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Bertalan Miklós. I think this is my 5th stream today, and I will continue to create this little application here. It still looks pretty rough, so we will do a little bit of styling, and by the end of this stream I plan to optimize this for mobile and make it into a proper PVA. And you will see that there are a few slight things that I want to address now. So I think we will just... Thanks! I tend to leave this little thing on. Actually, this is pretty cool. The It's React Time thing is coming from a web page that I don't even have open, so it just grows that web page and creates a transparent image from that and then displays it on top. Okay, so I think we will go from page to page, and I will show all of the little nuances that I found in between the sessions and during the sessions. So if you are not familiar with the application, it's a small React app for this API server, which was made by my colleague. He's called Robbie. We have a blog post about this, so you can check it on our blog. This is the documentation for it. And this is a basic application. You can search for products with fantasy names here. So I tend to use 2 words that I know that exist. So you can type in products here, and then you can log out, you can log in and register. And if you are logged in, you can add new products and edit existing products. And I want to tweak the routing a little bit, and I also want to make this into a progressive web app, which is mobile friendly. Yep, it's recorded, but we have the most basic Twitch account for now because we just started streaming. So Twitch released them after 2 weeks, I think, but we moved them to YouTube in little packets. So all the previous streams are already on our YouTube channel, which is obviously /RisingStack. Hi. So it's here, and then you can find them here. Okay, and as I promised in the chats, if you were here before, this session will mostly be vanilla React and JavaScript. So if you don't know about that, yes, I see that you are spamming the 2 commands. I try to make this a little bit nicer for you. So you have 2 commands, app and code, and with the app command you can see the actual current state of the application, and the code command gets you a GitHub link for the current code of the application. And I will, because we are dealing with PVA, I can't really test it in localhost because it has different rules in localhost. So I will deploy the application from time to time to the internet, and then we can all test it out if it works as expected, so it doesn't have stale caches and it works offline and these kind of things. Cool. Thanks. Yeah, that's the link. Okay, so let's start with the first page, I guess. This is the login page, and we have a few issues here. So as you can see, the buttons are not really correct. I know that I have some issues with the autocomplete, so we will do some native DOM stuff here. And there is also a slight problem that you won't really see here because it's a mobile problem, and I couldn't fire up my mobile emulator here because it's too much for the laptop to run all these things. So the issue here, yeah, sure, you can ask any React question. I can't answer anything, I am not part of the React team, but I can try. So the issue here is not React specific, it is that the expected behavior for typing on the computer is very different than from the user expectations on mobiles. So here, if I press an enter key, nothing happens. But on mobile with a virtual keyboard, The users always expect to jump to the next input field and then on to the next input field. And then there are no more input fields, then they expect to unfocus the current input fields to remove the virtual keyboard. This might not seem to be obvious for you, but if you're on a mobile and it doesn't behave this way, then it will be very noticeable for you. So we will do a little hack for this thing, which will be in native JavaScript. But before we do that, we are going to do a little bit of PVA. The issue with progressive web apps is that if you go to the page, you can visit this page. It's a public page. No, I didn't do any renaming yet. It's a question about the library that I use. So if you go to this page, then it should already be offline first. So if I go offline and reload the page, then you can see it still works because it's an offline first PVA. So before it actually fetches the stuff from the server, it checks if we have a cached version of this, and you can see here that it loads it from the cache, the service worker here. And the problem is that what we are using here is the strictest form of offline first. So even if you can find a newer version on the server, it will still load the stale old version from the cache. And we don't want to do that. So nowadays people do continuous deployment, and applications are updated multiple times a day, and you don't want users to stick with stale old application if you do fixes and patches. And the current state of art to avoid this is I'm showing you a little notification in a second, is to have a little notification here that tells you that, oh, there is a new version of this application, please download it. By downloading, it means please refresh the page and force the service worker to actually check the server this time. So this was the background story for it, and now we are going to do this. Service workers are pretty complex, and we are using Create React App, which simplifies it a lot for us. So if you check this file here, this was created by Create React App, register service worker. It comes out of the box if you do Create React App name. And here you can actually see nice little comments, and they tell you that this is the point where you should display this message if you have this message. This is the point where you should display that the content is cached and you are ready to use the application offline. So even if you don't understand any of this code here, you can just read the comments and see that, oh, this is some place where I should probably display notification instead of console logging, because nobody checks the console while using applications, especially not on mobile. So it will be pretty simple. We are just going to use this notification component from here, and we are going to get back to the register service worker, and this file here is not running inside the service worker. This is the file that can access anything, and this is which bootstraps the service worker file. So you can actually access anything. You can access React, you can access the DOM here. So we are just going to import our little notify function from the last session, and instead of doing console logs at these places, let's see this one. We want to turn this into a notification, and this one we also want to turn this into a notification. Probably not this one. Let's see. Oh, if the user is offline, we also want to turn this into a notification. And let's see, API, we have some events here. I think these are better moved there. So again, let's get back here. These are native events, so you are online again. So we also want to add some notification in these cases, because we want to let the user know that the application is awesome, and and even though they are offline, it still works and they can use it. Oh, sorry, I'm reading a question. It's a lengthy one. As I know, for example, is there a trick to get it signed? You shouldn't do tricks here. Service workers will only work with HTTPS, but they also work on localhost. So for development purposes, it's fine if you use localhost. Just do not use any aliases for it, because it checks for the actual string of localhost. And other than that, you shouldn't try to trick things. You should just use HTTPS. There are plenty of options to use HTTPS out of the box. I'm using something called Now by Zeit, and it's like I don't know. This is the command that I use to put it on the internet, and it gets HTTPS automatically. So there you can do some pretty simple stuff and just host it there. I don't know if this answered your question. So we are back to the API. So yes, and we just added a few more notifications for the events. And if you were not here last time, this is where the notify function is coming from. Basically, whenever you call this notify function, a snack bar will pop up from the bottom of the application, and it will display that message for some period. So that's it. And as I told you, so how to play around with service workers in Create React App. As I told you, they do work with localhost. So technically, you can check if they work with localhost, but they do not work in development mode. So they are disabled in development mode. Yeah, let's encrypt this simplest stuff. So here you can test service workers. If you do an actual npm run build, I won't do it now, and then after that I suggest you to do npx serve build single. This one just uses the serve package from npm and serves the actual production build on localhost. So this way you could test out the service worker, because it would be a production build. And one very important thing is to do this. And I won't even show you what's the error with this, because if I show you now, it will mess up the whole stream, because I will have stale caches, and it won't be an issue for me, but it will be an issue for you if you try to check the actual page. So the issue with service workers is that if you don't have proper caching, I don't mean service worker cache here, I mean native cache in the browser. If you don't have proper caching set up, things can get stuck. The service worker can be served from the cache, and the service worker is serving stale content to the other part of the application. So in this particular case, it's totally a good practice to disable cache for everything, because the service worker replaces the cache this time. So whenever there is no new content, it just does the offline first serving, and when there is new content, it fetches the new service worker, and it also fetches the stuff that is needed from the server, and it uses its own local cache that is done by Webpack. So I tell you all this, I know it's a lot of free speech now, sorry about that, but I tell you all this because it can be pretty easy to do some stack cache at the very beginning of creating applications, and if you already have a user base, it's hard to recover from that problem later, because Some browsers automatically refresh service workers every day to avoid that, but I think that maybe some other browsers don't do this, and then you can have users that have way older versions of your application even when they try to open it freshly. So you should always think about this before you put your application publicly out. Okay, so let's just put the new version of the application on the internet. So npm run deploy just deploys the code and the application if everything goes right. And now we actually have a service worker that has these little best practices. So next things, let's go to the login screen, and as you can see, these buttons are not really cool, so I will just color primary, play around a bit, maybe secondary. Let's see. Oh, and I want another variant. I am using Material UI for the styling because it's super simple for now. And this is just a hobby application, so it's totally fine to do it this way. So let's check all the buttons that I have. Material UI has an awesome docs page. That's why I chose it, because you can find everything with examples in a second. So we want a raised variant. Raised. And this one should be raised too. And I think it will be cool this way. So it's still pushing the code onto the internet. We're going to wait for that. I don't want to have secondary, so maybe this should be the default color. And let's just add some basic styling. So const button style. And the margin top should be maybe 10. This is very basic, but I don't want to spend a lot of time with styling stuff. So decided to do this. And yep, the code is already on the internet. So what we expect to see now is that if we go to the page that was newly deployed, I should unexpected token epic. Yep, so I should see this little notification here that it's offline mode. What? I think I messed up the notifications. Just a second. I'm going to check the comment in a second. No internet connection found. App is running in offline mode. Yeah, something was messed up there, but we will deploy a new version and then you will see what happens with these kind of things. But before that, I will just quickly. This is where you can. So this is your friend if you are doing progressive web apps. You always want to clear the side data. It clears the cache, it clears the registered service workers, everything. So you can just check how the application behaves on a fresh start. And if everything goes right. Yeah, we managed to mess up the notification somewhere, but we're going to check it in a second. Now, yes, it's free. I actually bought a super tiny package because it's only free for 1 megabyte of code per deployment, and it's fine because you don't push your node modules and these kind of things there. It installs everything locally. So for general usage, it's free. Under worker wouldn't run local assets. It should run on localhost without a certificate, I think. It's part of the service worker spec that it does run on localhost without any certificate, I think, because for the development purposes. But yes, I agree, it's a pain. So right now I am just pushing stuff out to the internet to check if it works, and I see that it doesn't show the notification for now, so there is some issues with it. So we will get back to this in a second. Yeah, but back to the login screen. We just did some basic buttons. Yeah, it looks much better now. So that's it. And one thing missing is the autocomplete. It's kind of messed up now. And I will try to make it better. It doesn't always work, because I found that browsers are kind of not perfect with this feature, but there is a native DOM attribute called autocomplete, if you're not familiar with it. And it's not a boolean flag, it's actually, it can be a string. And you can give hints to the browser that this input is a username, it's an email, it's a password, it's something different. So if you just check the autocomp, yep, autocomplete attribute should be down here, correct? No, it's up here. I'm checking the comments in a second. Yeah, these are the autocomplete values that you can give them. Yeah, okay, but as you can see, service workers are a pain. So I did some play around. I actually played a lot with service worker since they came out, and I have some issues that I can't resolve too. Sometimes they just, I don't know, I just don't see the notification, the event is not firing, and this kind of thing. It's a pretty new API, and it's probably buggy at places. So let's do autocomplete. So there is email, there is username, and there is new password here, right? And I know that this one is going to be forwarded to the underlying input. So the first one is an email. We can give a little hint to the browser that try to complete this field with all the emails that it knows about. This one is a new password. I have no idea what it can autocomplete with new passwords. It seems to be shady to me, but it's an actual accepted value. So it can do some magic probably. And then there is also a username here. So this one fixes the autocomplete a little bit. And probably that's it about the login page. One more thing that we should check before we go on is the mobile view. Because by the end of this session yep, that's why. By the end of the session this should look a lot nicer. So let's go to the app.js and add some little styling to it. Right now this is not really correct. We want to add a general 20 padding to the application, I think. So let's just make the margin smaller. And if you get back to the mobile view, yeah, that's nicer. We will only have to deal with the top bar. I think this can even be made a bit smaller. Yeah, it looks nicer now. So this is going to be the mobile view for now. And let's get out of the phone view. And if you check it, if I just do admin now, and I can use the password for admin now, so the autocomplete actually works better this time than it used to, because it tried to autocomplete, but I think the email was mistaken for the username or something like this, so it was really not perfect. Okay, next screen. And then we are going back to the PVA thing. Next screen is this screen, and the biggest issue that I found with this is a pretty shady one. If you check this little button here, it's a floating action button, typical Material UI thing, and do something, then you can see it is flashing around, and this one is actually some deep issue that is sadly a feature of every single browser. It is in the spec, but everyone considers it a bug. So if you go to MDN and check the fixed position, which of course this button is at the fixed position at the bottom. It's if you check it, it's always at the corner of the page. And if we check the fixed position, you will see something super strange. Position fixed. There it is. Yeah, it's here. So this value always creates a new stacking context. When an anchor store has the transform, perspective, or filter property set to something other than none, the anchor store is used as a container instead of the viewport. So what happens here is that I have a transform on the page whenever I switch pages because of the animation. And it totally messes everything. You see all this flicker, that's because of this little button here. Because this one considers this as the container for the fixed position whenever this one is transformed during the animation instead of the whole page. So it just jumps here because it tries to jump on the lower right corner, and it makes this terrible look. So how to fix this? We are not going to fix this with CSS, we are going to fix this with React, because there is no elegant fix with CSS. And this is where portals come into the picture. If you're not familiar with React portals, the idea is that you can portal out view from your components. So semantically and technically, you have a component here, for example, and it gets the props from here. Even the event bubbling is working as it would work otherwise, but it is not rendered in this section, in the mapped DOM. It is rather rendered somewhere else. So it is ported out for the rendering. So let's get to the product list page, and you can see that we have the little button here. And instead of what we have now, so it is actually rendered below this div in the DOM, but we don't want that because it will cause this issue. Yeah, portals are cool. They are kind of made for this thing. The hello world example of portals is modals, of course, but this floating action button is something similar to a modal. Actually, it's kind of detached from the view. It's in front of the view. So we are going to need React DOM from React DOM. Portals are inside the React DOM package because obviously they are not platform independent. They have to do with the DOM. It's kind of similar to React Render. And instead of doing this, it will be super simple. We are just going to do React DOM, and I still can type create portal. So the first argument is always React 3. Yeah, I could do that. Somehow I like to namespace the lesser known stuff like clone element and create portal and these kind of things, and then I like to not namespace the known stuff, typically constructors and these kind of things. So of course you could also do import create portal from React DOM, but since not so many people knows about portals, I like to make it explicit that this one is from the React DOM. And here, just like with the render function, the second argument is always an actual DOM element. That's why it's inside the React DOM package. It is tightly coupled with DOM. And of course, we don't want to render it inside the root and replace the application. We will do another element, and let's call this action button, I guess. And then we just go to our index.js, index.html, and also do action button here. And we just ported out the button from the page. So whenever the page is transformed, it won't do this flickering because it's not under the page in the actual DOM anymore. So if we check it now, it should be a lot nicer. Maybe just, never mind. Okay, format it a little bit. It's not a DOM element, still. I will deploy the app in a second. It's just target container is not a DOM element. Just a second. App Store. React DOM create portal. Of course it's not, because I messed up this thing. I have some issues with my. So create portal. This one. This one, this one, like this. Okay, better now. I had a typo, just like usual. Okay, and now if I go to somewhere else, you see that it remains here, because it's not... we still have some flickering. We will check it in a second and fix it. It's probably some double animation, but the button is pretty cool now. One way to improve it is to add a little animation for this too, and for that we can use the ready-made animations from Material UI. So I think there is one called Zoom, and the idea is that you just put the whole thing inside Zoom. It will just animate in and out, and also put it in another zoom. And it has an in property that tells it if it should be in or not. And for the in, the button should be in. We have this little pass coming from my stack. It's the current URL pass name in an array. It lies inside chunks. So it should be, the button should be in whenever the first token of the pass is products, because we only want to see this button on the products page that we are in now. And you will see that it will get a nice little animation together with, I hope so at least, together with the actual app. And the only thing I have to figure out is where this zoom lives. Let's just check. So yep, it lives here. So Material UI has transitions out of the box. Yeah, and it's reloading. After that we will fix this other flickering stuff. So if you pay close attention to the button here, that's the important stuff. So if I go to the fresh page, it stays here. If I go to another page, it just disappears. If I go back, it comes out. So it just has this little zooming effect too. Okay, cool. And a few little more optimizations for this page. I guess it looks pretty bad on mobile, probably. Not so bad, but the padding is way too big, I think. So let's fix that a little bit. And after that, we will check the animation because it looks terrible. So add button is pretty cool. I think the issue is with the product itself, probably. Products have a margin, which is nice. I will be dirty here. And I will do, I think this is acceptable. This. So just to negate the margin of the products. This is actually a pretty common pattern. Yeah, it looks nicer. And what I still need to do is to go to the product list, flag stretch. The application actually needs a little bit more top margin, I guess. And the login screen has something shady too. We will check it in a second. Oh, I will scroll down. Never mind. So actually it does not need more margin for now. And let's just, it might be a bit too tight for these items, but for now it's okay. So this should be -20. And for the products, I will just do 20, 10, I guess, but I always mess up there is too much space between them, I guess. Okay, the other way around. So this one, and then they will be a bit nicer. Yeah, it looks nicer. And back to the app. Now we can add a little bit of fun here too. Yeah, sorry for all the styling. Okay, it looks nicer now. So again, this page looks a lot better now. If we switch between the pages, animation is terrible, but it looks a bit better now. Log out, log in. Okay, we will check the container here. And to the next page. So we have the admin, login, which is this page. I only see an issue with the button here probably. So we're going to the product editor page. It will be a super slight change. I think that this one should be a raise button, and it should have a color of primary, and I am okay with this. Cool, we don't need any autocomplete here. We will check the container height in a second because I don't really like the current one. Okay, and now let's check the animations. So let's get out of here and see what's up. Okay, first of all, I don't like the current animation, so we are going to change it for a bit more asymmetric one, I think. And instead of the Y, we will do an X. And for the enter animation, it should have a little, bouncing, I think. So it will have a translate X 5, 2. And the leave animation, it can be a lot shorter, I think. And it needs a translate X of 10. So this one should look nicer, probably. Let's check what's up. I have no idea about this flashing. This might be the, I'm just checking something. Probably the flashing is, so the library that I am actually using here is still in the state of polishing. So it might have some small issues still. I'm currently documenting it and also fixing every little thing that I see. So I don't know where this little flashing comes from, but let's get back to this a bit later together with the PV8ing. Okay, so the pages are actually getting better. If I just log out now, this is also something that probably I should change. If somebody clicks on the logout button it should always route to the login page, I think. And let's just change this. So the previous behavior was whenever you are on a protected page, it notifies you to go to another page, and then it also routes to the login page. I'm going to change this to this. Always route to the login page, because that's more of the expectation of the user. And also do a notification. And while we are here, I think also on the on change, we should change this a little. So also just get there is a single global route function that you can use for programmatic routing. So again, we should probably just route to the products page whenever a new product is saved, because it will look nicer. Okay, let's get back here. Let's see what we did. So we are logging in. Oh, it's much faster now. Use the password for admin, login. And let's get here. Let's edit this. And it goes back to this page. And then if we log out, it comes to this page. Okay, looks nicer. Yeah, let's just deploy the whole thing to the internet and continue with playing around with the notifications and progressive everything. So one more thing that I wanted to do with the notifications is having an action also. So for the second parameter of notify, I think I will do a little action, which is going to be a function here. Don't worry if you are not familiar with this store thing. I am using this library here, and this is the state management part of it. React easy. It's a library done by me. So if you want to get familiar with this, the main idea is to have a very simple state management that is less elegant in a way than Redux, but also you don't need so much boilerplate, so you're not going to make so many mistakes. It's based on mutable data, there is no actions, you can do anything you want. So there is a lot of freedom, but you have to take care of what you're doing, of course. So this is the library that I'm using. So this is the little store, it's coming from that library. The idea is whenever you mutate the store, every component that uses that the store is re-rendered if it uses the mutated part. And then you can this is just JavaScript, you can do anything. You can use it in any way, you can mutate it in any way, it's just an object. So here we are just going to do add action here, and whenever someone closes the notification, we are going to wipe the action out just to make sure that we don't have any leaks. And action here should be the notification store dot action. Let's just move it one up. So because we want to display buttons, for example, when we have the little there is a new application available, please refresh, then we want to have a little refresh button there. And so we have you don't have to do this, I just do this as a documentation here, that there is actually a possible action in the store too. And then we want to get back to the service worker and import a button from material UI button. And remember that I couldn't show it to you yet, but I will, I promise. So we have this little new content is available, please refresh thing. And as a second argument, we want to pass in an action, which is an actual piece of React code. And we want to tell that it's a refresh, and on click, it should basically refresh the page. So it should do window.location.reload and pass in through it's a function. I don't really do inline functions for probes, but in this case, I will just make an exception. So this little argument here, it tells it to do a force reload, so it favors the server instead of the cache. And it's nice to be so aggressive when there's a new version out there. Just to avoid any service worker stale caching issues. So we have an action now. Let's see if, yeah, the code should already be out on the internet, but not this version, a slightly older version. I just want to check if we have those notifications already, or it's stuck somewhere. Let's just wait. Yeah, new content is available, please refresh, but we do not have the refresh button for now. Because that's what I tried to tell you at the beginning. If you check how to show it to you, login, not this one. If we log in here, I don't know when we last deployed, and if we go around this page, you can't really see it, but this one is not the latest version of the application. I actually have to refresh to get the latest version of the application. So it was a slightly older version. I don't remember what I changed since then. But right now, if I do something like this, let's go to the login screen and change something obvious like the register. Now it will have 2 exclamation marks, and then deploy a new code to the internet. You will see what I am talking about. So if everything goes right, the register will still be without exclamation marks because it is offline first, it is favoring the cache data, but it will have this little notification about available new version and please refresh the page. And that's something that you always want to do with offline first service workers. Okay, let's see what else we are missing. I think we have a little issue with the top bar, and then after that we will do some native playing around. Yeah, the top bar should be a bit more, it should be nicer basically. So again, I think the issue with the Nav Bar is that yeah, it doesn't have any padding. First thing is that max width is, this one should be changed. This one is already pretty bad. So this is how you do it. And with the margin, you have auto, yes, that's nice. And we are also going to need a little bit of padding, I think. So it should be 10 for now, we will see. And it will still be bad, I will show it in a second, because of the box sizing property of the CSS. Let's go to local. Yep, it's open. Oh, sorry, I just managed to deploy a bad version of the code, so currently it's not working and I just put it on the internet, so I will start a new deploy in a second. Yeah, looks nicer. Let's wait for this to go out and then I will do another one. Yeah, this is way too much padding. I don't want to do this. So let's get back to the Nav Bar, and what I want to do is to have like a 0, 10 pixel to show it. Yeah, that's why you do local development. Slightly more, should be like 3 and 10. If I do an inspect here, can, I think the search bar, it should also be slightly different. Style, search, style. It should have a width of, this is a kind of typical pattern that you are adding it a width, and then you are also telling that the maximum or minimum width should be something. In this case, I think the minimum width should be like 160 pixels probably. And it should be nice this way. I could also add some maximum width. So it is still deploying it, super slow. And the issue here is that, yeah, you can see the issue here. That's what I wanted to show you. Is that this one is a pretty typical thing to have a width and a max width to optimize it for PCs and also mobiles. So on PC it should be on the middle because of the auto margin, and it should have a maximum width of 800. But on mobile, of course, it doesn't have a width of 800, it should have the width of the whole screen instead. But because we also have padding here, the actual width will be more than the screen, because also the padding will be added to the width. So you can see here that even though the whole screen is 360 pixels wide, if you check it here, you see that this one is way wider. It is 382. So what you want to do, and I usually do this with my resets, is to change the box sizing behavior, because the box sizing behavior toggles how the browser calculates sizes, if it takes the padding and border and these kind of things inside the size. And yay, sorry about this. And it should be a border box instead of content box to actually, this is more intuitive. And now you can see that the login button is actually in place now, and it's 360 because it calculates in all the border and padding and everything inside. That's 100% size. And let's see if it. I am just going to restart this. I think it's stuck somewhere, somehow, someway. Okay. So we are done with the box sizing thing. And let's see what else we have. So this is the mobile view here. We can actually log in, go to another page. Okay, seems to be nicer. One last thing to tweak is probably this one. I will just make it 180. And what else to do? The font doesn't seem right because it should be Roboto. This is also something I like to do in the. I don't like to do a lot of things in CSS usually, but I like to do like basic font setup and resets like the box sizing property in very general rules inside the CSS. So for example, this one, I will just apply it to every single element with the star selector, so that it's this one is more specific than adding it to the body actually. So some cases won't be covered by adding this link to the body, and this one will cover those things too. It's nicer to do it this way. Okay, let's see. Oh, it's pushing it to the internet. So if you check generate concrete salad now and go to the logout page, You see that there are no exclamation marks after the register for now. But here in the code we do have the exclamation marks, so we expect the new version to arrive soon, and then I can show you what happens with newer versions of the application and with service workers. Okay, let's check the app. So it's not what we need. Look out. Okay, one last thing is to fix the container height here. I have no idea why it is 70 pixels, then the issue is probably here. Inspect. And then now it's getting together pretty nicely. I don't know, this one just seems to be way too low for my taste, because it has a pretty big margin. 70 pixels, auto. And also padding. Okay, so general CSS hacky magic. I will just swap this for a 50, and I will go to the production list, and instead of this I will do a 0 minus 20 pixel, and this one should solve it. I am just doing this because I am waiting for the app to arrive on the internet. Okay, this is nicer. And so I have the little animation. So what's the issue with the animation here? It's probably this. It should always animate, I guess. Let's see. No, didn't fix it. I have no idea. I will just have to check it in the library that I did. It has this flashing some way. Okay, so the code is now out on the internet. The new code should be out, the new application should be out, and if I come here and just to make sure that you got this, here in the login screen I have these 2 exclamation marks, and this is the code that should be out on the internet. I did this change before I deployed the stuff. So if I refresh now, I should see the little 2 exclamation marks here, but I do not see them because the content is coming from the offline service worker, and it tells me that I have to refresh because this time actually it fetches the data from the server and it refreshes to have the new service worker and the new code. So this is how you do offline first progressive web apps. Sadly, the application will always be fresh only on the second step, if that makes sense. But you can make the UX a little bit better by displaying a little notification that there is a new version available, please refresh. And if I am deploying again, you will see that in the last few minutes we just improved this little notification with adding a button there to refresh the page. Of course, this is not the best kind of text, you could just improve this. Okay, so while we are waiting for that to arrive, sorry, update available. I will just delete this just to make sure that you will see that there is a new version available. The current version on the internet has these 2 exclamation marks. I will just remove them now, and then now I will do an npm run deploy. So the freshest version doesn't have the exclamation marks. Okay, and what else can we do? Yeah, I mentioned that This one is actually not a good mobile UX, that when you are pressing enter, it just stays on that field, because let me... I have a little tablet with me. I will try to showcase it on that. It will be pretty small, but hopefully you will be able to see it. So let me just search for something, and I press go here. And as you can see, the keyboard is remaining there because it doesn't blur the input on enters. And this is not something that you expect on mobiles to actually happen. You expect the keyboard to go away after you do the search. And this is not the default behavior of the web. So we have to do this by hand. And probably this will be the last little thing that we are doing. I will do a little utility. I will call it auto blur. Probably it won't have to do anything with React. I could just open source this later as a general utility for progressive web apps to work on mobile and the web too. So we should have a function and call it auto blur to check the cache version of page load. Yes, it's sure you can trigger it automatically, but that's not a good UX. That is what happens for if you check the just a second. Check valid service worker. This one does that. Yeah. So if you check the code here, it does that, but only for development purposes. So I think this code only runs if we are on localhost. Yeah, you can see it. If we are on localhost, it actually does that, which is kind of misleading. I wouldn't do this. So if you are on localhost, it detects if there is a new version available and it auto reloads the page. Of course, this has a little flickering effect, and it doubles not really doubles, but doubles the page load speed. And this is, if a user goes to the page and they see that it double loads, it's an instant turn off. So you don't want to do that, you only want to do that for development. And even for development, I would just leave this thing out because it gives you a false sense of safety. Maybe you don't notice that it does this behind the scenes, and you assume that everything will just work. And on production, people are stuck with way older versions of your application. So that's not nice. Okay, let's get back to the PVA. The new version is out. So with the login screen, you see that we do not have the exclamation marks now, but the older version has it. So if we reload the page, you see that it still has the exclamation marks, but it already has the new content available. Please refresh. And if I refresh, this is a new version of it. What I do not know is why didn't the notification display the action. Probably we messed up something. For the next one, I can showcase the actual full UX with the button. I had a little typo here. So again, while we are doing something else, let's just add the little exclamation marks and do a new deployment. And this time it should work perfectly. And I will show all the different notification use cases that you can get. Okay, and let's get back to the auto blur thing. So we will want an element, probably that should be the window by default. And this is gonna be a tiny bit tough. So we want to add an event listener for key press. Yes. And the listener should check if the event car code equals to 13, or this one is not standard. The browsers are in the process of standardizing this, so I will just do a lot of things here to make sure that I catch enter. if you're not doing, this one is native DOM here. If you're not doing native DOM, but you are doing React, then it's enough to do one of these because React doesn't have actual DOM events, it has synthetic events, and these ones are handled nicely. But of course here I have to make sure that it works in every platform. So if it's an enter key, then I want to get the element that is passed here and get the form of the element. Yeah, let's check the code in the meantime, it's complete. So what I want to do is, just to add you some context, is that if somebody presses enter on an input while on a mobile device, I should unfocus that input to remove the virtual keyboard from here, because that's the expected behavior. That should happen if I am not inside the form. If I am inside the form, I should unfocus this input and I should automatically focus the next input. That is the expected behavior for mobiles, because you want to have this little nice flow of filling out forms on mobile. So I should check if the element has a form. Every native input element has a form property. I will just show that on MDM because probably this one is new for a lot of HTML input element. And the application is going to the internet. It's in the process of deployment, so I can showcase it in a second. Yeah, okay, let's just show you that every input element has a form property that points to the form that belongs to the element. The belonging form is the form that is in which the element is nested inside, or it can be more complex than this, but usually it's the enclosing form of the input element if there is any. And let's do a little context switch and check the deploy the application again. And if you go to the login screen, you can see that it has exclamation marks now. And this should be the final version that I am showcasing for Progressive Web Apps. I am reloading it. It still doesn't have the exclamation marks. Again, I made a mistake somewhere. It doesn't display the action still. Tough. But the other thing I wanted to show you anyway is that if you are doing a fresh load, then now it doesn't have a service worker, so it will do another notification. Now it tells you that the first time you the first time you install the page and it installed the service worker, and now the application is actually ready for offline usage. So if you have this little notification too, then you can go offline. Again, I get a notification that I am offline, and I can just reload the application because it still works offline, and I can even use the application. And whatever I did before I went offline will work offline too. Of course, there is no magic. If I do something completely new, it won't work because it cannot guess it. If you didn't pre-cache it without the user's knowledge. So let's get back to the notification because there is an issue. Instead of going on with the auto blur, I will debug the notification now. Yeah, this is not service worker issue. This is general programming issue. I messed up. So this one should be the action here. It should have an on-click. And if I go back to notify, it should have an action. Okay, let's just do a super simple. You are right, the issue is with the service workers, kind of, because whatever I code in this file I cannot really check in development mode. I have to do all this fancy stuff to check if it works. So I will just move the code that I have there to here probably, and check if it actually works. Because here it will work with the local stuff too. Unexpected token, epic. Why is this an unexpected token? I have a button. It cannot go in global scope. Oh, I got it. Because this one is not in global scope. So it should go here, and then let's check if it works or not. Probably it won't. Yeah, this whole session is kind of tuning and refactoring. Now we will need a button to see what happens. So import button from material UI button. And just to top this one, in the next session I plan to do some error boundaries. And that's again something that only works in production mode, because Create React App has this error overlay, and it just doesn't play well with components error boundaries. So again, I will have to do all these deploying and production builds and these kind of things. So let's check the page load again. Refresh. It does have the button this time. Okay, let's tweak it a little bit and check it again. Then the issue is not with this. So probably I will need a color of secondary to make this pop out. Refresh. Yeah, way nicer. Okay. And last try. If this doesn't work, I have no idea. New content is available. Please refresh. Cool. It should definitely work. So let's go back to the login screen. Delete the exclamation marks. I guess you start to see the pattern here. Deploy the stuff to the internet. And this is going to be the last deployment. I will just tinker a bit about this auto blur functionality, and then I guess we will end it for today. So the idea is that on enter key presses I should focus the next element inside the form. And in this case, probably I should move this is enter, and I should also have an is input element matches. So it should either be an input or a text area or a select for now, and it should not be read only, and it should be, I will improve this selector later. So if the element is an input and the event is an enter key press, then because of this we know that it must have a form property. So we check if the element has if the element is inside the form, so if it has a form. And we also check if it doesn't. If it doesn't have a form, then we just do elements dot blur. And if it has a form, then we do elements dot form dot query selector all, I guess. And we want to select probably these kind of things. Well, it shouldn't be So if you press enter on a text area, it shouldn't do anything. That was a mistake. But it should input. It should get all of the elements, input type elements of the enclosing form, convert that thing into an array, and then input index, find the index of the current element inside that array, and check if there is a next input, which means input index +1, and if there is a next input, it should do next input dot focus and also select the text inside. Otherwise, it should fall back to element dot blur. This was tough. Next element sibling. Wow, fancy stuff. It's not going to work because I want to, of course I could go through everything, but I want to select the next elements inside the form that is either an input, a text area, and select. And I am not only looking for elements at the same level, I am looking for any elements inside the form that comes after this element. So it can be nested in the next element sibling somewhere down, if that makes sense. Probably this one won't work at first try either, but this is kind of the intent. And for now, let's check if the notification actually works for the PVA now. And then after that, we are going to check if this code works, and then it's going to be goodbye time for today. Yeah, so let's go to this page, just to, what's it now? So it shouldn't have exclamation marks now. Now it does. Whoa, let's just close this. Where is the notification? Service workers at their best. Amazing. I think something is stuck somewhere. Generic concrete salad. I hope I have the cache disabled. Probably I do not have it. Okay, we will get back to this the next time. It's probably something with yes, I forgot to pay the worker. No, I think it has to be something with next. It was as you can see, when I opened the developer console, it just opened the next page. It has to do something with the actual browser cache. I think this one is not working correctly. I will check it for the next session, I promise, and also the animation. I think this one is not working correctly. It does actually cache stuff, so that's not nice. But you get the idea. You have to play around with this to actually get it right with the chosen stack. And let's just check the auto blur for a little farewell message from auto blur, and let's call this. We are going to need to add auto blur to the whole window, I guess, and just for the fun, let's do it one more time. It's pretty frustrating. Okay, login form. So we just type in something here, we press enter, and it breaks. Super nice. Matches MDN, some debugging. Probably. Yes, because I messed this one up. Auto blur. The element here, it's not this element. I want to check, let's call this one container. And I want to add the event listener to the container, which will be the window in this case. Yeah. And here the element will be the event target, of course. I messed that one up. And that's what we are going to use to check. Let's make a little shortcut here, element. So we are checking if we have a form. I don't need this. Now it should be better. It will still break probably, but in a nicer way, hopefully. So, okay, it's slightly better. Now it actually blurs it. So we just have to, of course it blurs it. Now it's working. It blurs it because we did not put these things inside forms. So I will just put the whole thing inside the form. And let's see what happens here. So I type in something and it goes to the next, and it goes to the next, and it fades out. So it's even nicer to have this on PCs, but on mobile this one is actually super valuable. So you always want to do this with mobile. So if you are inside forms, you have this little progressive form components. I don't think so. I have never found it, at least. It has a lot of form utilities, but it doesn't have a form, I think. And if something is not inside the form, you just have this auto blur functionality. So you type in something and then it blurs after that. Which seems to have, yeah, it's probably broke this thing. Well, that's something for the next session. Okay, last try with the notification, I promise. And then after that we are done for today's session. Did I even add any? I didn't even add new code, I think. So now it will naturally not really blur because nothing changed. Yeah, that's it. It's obviously PVAs are difficult to get right, so we will visit this topic again for the next session. We will fix the animation that is flickering for now, and also fix the PVA updating, and then after that I guess this one can be called fully functional progressive web app. What we still have to do is to change the manifest JSON slightly, which is here. And after that it will really, for the next session I plan to showcase all the offline capabilities on mobile and tablet, and show you how it adapts to every possible circumstances. So it should work with every network speed, it should work with every screen size, it should have a good UX for virtual keyboards and not virtual keyboards. So we did a lot of slide optimizations over the last few sessions, and then at the end it will come together pretty nicely. So see you next week. Hopefully that will be the last session. We will see. And thanks for all the comments and questions. It was really nice.